Have you ever asked yourself, why should I get out of bed today? Maybe this question doesn't mean much, and it's a feeling some of us know or will know, and it's very depressing. Maybe the question instead should be, why do we suffer? It's a tough question, and it's not an easy one to answer. But one thing is for certain, it feels lonely, and it eats away at you. Anyway, with that being said, my name is Nate, and this is Another Perspective. And today we're going to be looking at a book called Healing Your Wounded Soul, Growing from Pain to Peace, and how it talks about this topic and how to move forward. Before we move on, if you're interested in a priest perspective, specifically on why we suffer, there's a channel called Divine Ascent that recently released a video relating to our topic today. They make thoughtful and grounded content, so I recommend checking them out. I'll play a short clip from their video before we continue. So this is a goofball moment on my part, but I low-key cannot upload like the actual videos, so I have to screen record it. With that being said, let's jump into it.
To ever believe, even for a second, that God is not there, that God is not present, that God is not with us in that suffering we don't deserve that, right? We don't deserve that.
So I hope y'all paid attention to the video. Now I'm just going to be talking about a personal story, and then after that we'll be answering the question of why do we suffer, and then after that we'll be talking about how to move forward with that suffering. So I guess before we dive into this book, I'm going to talk about how this book has impacted me and why it means so much to me. When I first started college, I was not that religious, and I guess like in the first month of the school year, I had some really traumatic things that happened to me that I struggled with for a long time. I got sick a lot, and so at times I literally physically struggled to get out of bed and go to my classes. At this point in time, alongside my physical health, my mental health, and my academic life were in shambles, and for a while I always thought about the question, what was the point of getting out of bed today? I would say I was just stuck in this never-ending loop, and for a while, life just felt black and white. I mean, throughout all this, I felt alone. I was just angry at the fact that sometimes, like, nobody would check in on me, whether that was like my friends or family. And I guess this was terrible to say, but I felt like they weren't necessarily there for me, so I started pushing them away because I wanted nothing to do with them. I felt like they couldn't understand me or that they didn't care about me. And I guess because of what happened, my relationship with God wasn't all that great either. And honestly, I hated the idea of religion for a long time. And I guess what got me interested again, or at least for the first time in my life, was this one priest who was very patient with me. And really, all he did for me was just check in on me to see if I was okay. He would text me, he would take me out for food, take me out to church, etc. And because of that, I guess I started becoming a little bit more curious about religion. So now at this point, like a year goes by, and I start deep diving into apologetics, and I was just so hell bent on learning things on a rational and intellectual level that I got so annoyed that people around me didn't want to have the same interests as me. And a part of me thought that if I got well versed in these topics, maybe I could move on and finally be happy. But that wasn't enough, and every day in the back of my mind, I would just spend time telling myself, I deserve what happened, or I couldn't amount to anything. But ironically, I guess what I wanted was to change so badly. I mean, if you were to ask yourself, would you really want to live like how I did? But there's this mental block that I couldn't shake off, and it's like a New Year's resolution, you know? So this is an actual thing that was going on in my life. Like I tried going to the gym maybe like 2 or 3 times a week, and every single time I would go pretty decently, but at some point I would just give up and fail and then go back to how things were. I wanted to change, but again, something was holding me back. Now, to kind of answer the question of why we do suffer still, It's very hard, and I'm not sure if there's necessarily a straight answer to it. But suffering is a byproduct of the evil in the world. And let's be real here, it can be self inflicted or it can be done by others. But I think this website called Coptic Orthodox Answers has like the best solution to this question. And they quote, "What we discover here is very clear. When God created us in his image and likeness, he instilled us the gift of free will. It is therefore the abuse of our free will that will lead us to the state of corruption in creation. Rather than remaining in God's presence under the shadow of his care, compassion, and abundant love, we instead choose to be the authors of our own lives. And in choosing ourselves over God, we separate ourselves from him and introduce ourselves to a state of evil, corruption, pain, and suffering." And they also quote St. Basil, saying, "Evil is not a living and animated substance, but a condition on which the soul is opposed to virtue." And this is his specific homily down here, just so y'all know. So, what does healing actually look like? Is it instant, or is it as simple as praying it all away? The short answer is healing is a long process, and it's slow, it's uncomfortable, and requires a lot of patience. And this is something that Divine Ascent talked about in their recent clip. They emphasize that God is not distant during our suffering, and that we shouldn't believe the lie that God has abandoned us. This directly connects with Isaiah 41:10, which says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." God has never abandoned you, and he's always present. But we still have to be willing to reach out, to take his hand, and to accept that help. And this is where healing your wounded soul really impacted me. What made this book really powerful is that it used realistic psychology. There's none of the pray it away mindset, and it actually talks about what healing looks like over time. The book explains that eventually we gain self awareness, and we're finally able to express the emotions that we suppressed. And at the same time, we begin to recognize that some of our behaviors and thought patterns aren't healthy. It describes shame as a cloak of darkness and loneliness that isolates us. And healing means slowly working toward removing that cloak. But how do you even get to that point? Well, a big part of it is learning to choose hope over expectations. Expectations demand immediate results. Hope trusts the process even when it's slow and painful. And now the next part, and maybe this is the hardest part, it's forgiveness. Forgiving is incredibly difficult, and we want to hold on to the anger and resentment because it feels protected. It feels justified at times. But hatred doesn't protect us, it destroys us. And as you forgive, the walls you build up begin to come down. You start giving up control, little by little, and eventually you work through the things that were destroying you, the things you once relied on just to get through the days. I learned about these things in this book, but I also have to thank the priests and the community at the monastery. That priest told me something that stuck with me, that the feelings I was struggling with were shared by more people than I realized. And at first I thought he was just saying that just to make me feel better, but I was wrong. I mentioned in my monastery experience the night that we all talked about how God impacted our lives. To emphasize that moment, the people there are very deeply faithful for a good reason, and their stories are tough and they've been through a lot. What I admire most is that they did what I could not do at the time. They were vulnerable and they opened up. And because of them, I began to understand the same themes of forgiveness and letting go. Earlier, I talked about how I resented my friends and family for not being there for me, and to them I want to say this: I'm sorry. I expected to not give anything in return, and I also did not consider that I was not opening up either. If I had been more honest, maybe things would have been different. But regardless, you are good people and I love all of you. And it took me a long time to let go of everything that I was holding on to. And the best thing I can describe as what came next was inner peace. It's very hard to explain, and it's ambiguous on how long it will last. But no matter what happens, I now know how to work towards healing my wounded soul. And so do you. Before we conclude this video, I just want to make one last point about seeking help and counseling. So, in the book, they quote, "To seek outside help is okay and can be incredibly beneficial. However, we should exercise caution and discernment in finding the right person." Again, as always, the church teaches balance. We should be open but cautious and always use discernment. So take that as long as it's spiritually beneficial for you, always consider your options. Be discerning. And another thing I want to make a point on is we sometimes think that we cannot talk about our issues to our spiritual fathers in the sense of guidance. I just wanted to say that you can. And another thing to also consider is that if you need someone to listen to you, whether that's about confession or certain issues, that's what the priest is there for. They're there to help you and guide you through this life. And of course, one last thing is the church offers counsel through scripture, the writings of the church fathers, and even the liturgical services. With that being said, this is the ending of this section, and I hope you take it well. So, just a quick thanks. I just want to thank Rohan, my roommate, for letting me use his beats. I would have not been able to make the video as bearable as I could without it, so thank you. And also Divine Ascent for allowing me to use their clip for the video, as it helped further the message and the point. So, where am I going with this message? It's definitely not easy to work through things, and I know this firsthand. It takes a while to fully recover. So be honest with yourself, and things will get better. Have gratitude, as it is a necessary tool for preserving the peace of Christ within ourselves. Gratitude, in turn, also leads us to accept the life that God has given us. Healing your wounded soul isn't about moving on, but moving forward. And once you're able to do that, you're finally able to accept God's love. And with that being said, I hope this video does give good insight on healing from trauma, and I'll see you guys around.